Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we get to read the Book of Ruth. And the Book of Ruth is a beautiful picture, or gives us a beautiful picture of redemption. This is a story that is set back in the time of the Judges. It's a story about Naomi, who goes into the land of Moab with her husband and two sons, and to avoid a famine that was going on in the land of Israel. And her husband and two sons ends up dying, which leaves her with two daughter-in-laws. Well, Ruth, one of her daughter-in-laws, decides to go with her back to the land once the famine was over. Well, they go back and they're very poor, and Ruth goes out and gleans the fields of Boaz. And Boaz is very generous to her, gives her a little extra money, a little extra food, lets her drink from the water, and it comes to find out, or we come to find out, that Boaz was actually a close relative of Naomi, and therefore was a possible redeemer of her land, of her inheritance that belonged to her husband. So she sends Ruth to lay at his feet and to obey whatever it is that he tells her to do. Well, Boaz recognizes that there is actually a relative that is closer to Naomi's family, and so he goes and talks to him first. And the guy says, hey, I can't redeem it because it would mess up my inheritance. And so Boaz decides to do it. He's going to redeem it, and then in doing so, marry Ruth. And so what we have in this story is actually a Moabitess actually finding a place amongst God's people and receiving an inheritance there. Now if you just hearing that may not shock you, but when you think about what it meant to be a Moabite, it meant to be in stark contrast to God's people. Their whole history starts with that incestuous relationship between Lot and his daughter. And that's where Moab was born, and that's where they came from. It was the Moabites that didn't give food and water to the Israelites as they were going through the wilderness. It was the Moabites who hired Balaam to curse God's people. It was the Moabites who in Deuteronomy chapter 23 were told to not ever be able to be in the assembly of the people of God's people up to the 10th generation. And so this was a people that was not in good standings with the Israelites, but also not in good standing with God. And yet you have this Moabitess actually being a part of God's people and having a part of the inheritance there. That's amazing. And it's even more amazing when we think about ourselves, how it is that we have been able to become a part of God's people and to receive an inheritance. Because all of us can relate to Ruth. All of us have a history of sin. All of us have fallen away from God. All of us have been enemies of God, and in a sense incurred the judgment of God, and therefore been seen as foreigners to the people of God. But through a similar process that Ruth went through, we have been able to be redeemed and actually to receive the inheritance and become a part of God's people. What did Ruth do? Well, she was obedient, she was submissive, and she was humble. She had to be submissive to her mother-in-law. She had to be obedient to God's law in connection to redemption, also obedient to Boaz and whatever he told her to do. But she also had to be humble. She had to lay at his feet. And to lay at someone's feet was a place of humility. It was a way of humbling oneself, prostrating oneself before someone else to give them honor. And that's what we do in our attempt to be redeemed by God, is we have to submit to God, submit to His Word, be obedient to the process that He has laid out for redemption, and to submit ourselves, to lay ourselves down, and to humble ourselves before Him, placing our faith in Jesus Christ, laying our lives down before Him, and seeking the redemption that only He can give. As as Peter wrote in his first epistle, he said that we have been redeemed, not with gold and silver, but with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. And so us sinners, us foreigners, us enemies of God, have all been redeemed through the work of Jesus Christ. And so, however beautiful this story is of Ruth and these great characters, Boaz, and how well he deals with her, and all the intricacies of this story, however beautiful all that is, it becomes even more beautiful when we think about what it is that God has done to bring us back to himself. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And it's really something we can rejoice in. As we go to church today, we can really go with a attitude, a heart of appreciation, of love and devotion to God for the wonderful love he has demonstrated through redeeming us through Jesus Christ. So just some things to think about. Hopefully they were helpful to you. Thank you guys for watching the video. I love you guys. God bless.